Today, I myself, Alex Early from the company GITP, and my colleague Uta Schwertel from IMC will be hosting this webinar. It should take about 45 to 50 minutes. There's not really a possibility to chat, at least verbally chat during the session, but there is a chat button where you can ask questions if any arise, and we'll try to answer them during the presentation and otherwise after this presentation. Thank you very much again for joining us. Today we'll be showing you a bit more about the personalized learning environment, which is a kind of a digital coach which has been built by all the companies and organizations that you see here. So IMC and GITP, but also IBM has participated, and Intrasoft, both software companies, various universities like Bristol, West England, and University College Dublin, and also a few other organizations will be very helpful in reaching the final product what we will be showing you today. So the personalized learning environment, or develop as we call it, is a Horizon 2020 research project financed by the European Union. And the idea, the overall objective of this develop is to deliver an adaptive, personalized learning environment. So a learning environment for all employees, focus on their career development using modern techniques, but also especially, in fact, adapting the outcomes within the portal to the needs, the wishes, but also the capabilities of the people participating. The idea behind the model is that we'll be using what we call transversal competencies, and I'll be touching on that a bit later. And also we have focused on the social capital, the social network connections that people have, because our idea from the literature is that that is very helpful also for developing certain competencies and also for further career enhancement. What we want to do is to, and I'll be showing you some of that today as well, is to show you some personalized visualizations of your career platform, the career potential that you have, or that the participant has when participating within the environment. So the project aims were and are still to enhance employee awareness and understanding about their career development. We find also from the literature that people sometimes aren't even aware of their own potential and what a company or organization can offer them. We want to provide people insights into how a career can be developed through reflecting on the current competencies, but also focusing on the potential of competencies that people have. And we want to highlight these transferable competencies so people know what their transversal competencies are, and they can use them to facilitate internal mobility within a company. What we also want to do is to show people which potential career paths they can follow and which learning activities, and that's the part where artificial intelligence comes into play. Certain learning activities can be used in order to enhance the proficiency of the competencies needed to follow this career path. We are using within the personalized learning environment traditional tools like questionnaires, personality, things like that, but also novel assessment methods. So, for instance, serious games, and also social network analysis and artificial intelligence, in order to plan and to make suggestions about which paths and which learning interventions people should follow. And we want to provide a fundamental change, as we say here, of the competency growth and career development. It's experienced and analyzed within large organizations. Now, one of the reasons why this project was granted from the European Union is that we see all over Europe increased working lives, so people live longer, and also they got to work longer. It still varies from country to country, but say for instance here in the Netherlands, people have got to work till about their 67th birthday, and perhaps in a few years' time that'll be even a lot older. So people have to keep on developing themselves. We see that a lot of labor markets changing, so reduced job security, but also the fact that at the moment, especially in the northern part of Europe, there's a large shortage of highly qualified personnel. So unemployment rates are really, really low, which on one hand is a good thing. The other hand is that we are finding it very, very hard to find qualified people. And with that, we also notice that people have got to be more agile, more adaptable in the sense that they, got to be able to master many more competencies than previously, in order to show their agility in working in different job roles. And what we see, sorry about that, what we see here is that employees are also actively developing their careers, and they would like some further career guidance. Now, there's a short video I would like to show you, which concerns the way that the personal learning environment works. Some of our other listeners, this isn't working either. So if you go to this website, you go to this YouTube website, you can see the introductory video about the personalized learning environment. So what does develop offer? What does the personalized learning environment offer? It offers insight into the present proficiency level on certain competencies. It shows the people, the participants, so how their present proficiency relates to their present role. We show where their strengths and where their weaknesses lie, and we help people to progress in their further career development based on the insights that are acquired. And last but certainly not least, the competency profile gaps are used to tailor useful learning activities. So the AI planning, the artificial intelligence planning, gives learning interventions on how to kind of master the profile gaps that people have. Within the personalized learning environment, there are loads and loads of competencies out there. So we had to choose a valid model, and we chose the model of the Great 8, which was constructed by David Bartram. And what it does is it kind of musters 8 clusters of competencies, as you can see here with their definition. So it starts with analyzing and interpreting, and moves all the way down to adapting and coping, and all kind of competencies are underlying that. Now, the idea behind transversal competencies is that, say, if we look at these 4 competencies, communication, sociability, conceptual thinking, and independence, we could say, if there are, say, for instance, 4 different types of job positions that you would want to have, you could say that, say, for instance, communication stability are applicable for jobs in a public relation type of role. Communication is also necessary for a marketing job role, but an added competency would, say, for instance, be independence. Engineering is conceptual thinking, and as an entrepreneur, you need most of these competencies, so at least communication, sociability, and independence. So what we see here is that competencies, generically speaking, can and should be used over various job roles. That's why it's called transferable. So it's transferable from one job position to another. So if we would enhance somebody's communication skills, that would mean that their proficiency would increase, but also that they could acquire jobs or complete jobs, professionally complete jobs in other areas than the present job position.
Alec, could you close the window on the bottom right?
Yep, yes. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
So how do we go about measuring these competencies? Well, we do, like I said before, we used some traditional methods, like for instance a personality questionnaire and general mental ability test, so EQ test. both these tests are very powerful predictors of job performance, based on all kinds of scientific literature. As is the 360 review, good predictive validity, but we also see that a lot of companies already use that type of competency assessment. So what's new are serious games. So they're games that you can play, and based on the way that you play the game, we can deduce all kinds of behavior from that playing of that game. And another novel thing is what we call the social network analysis. So analysis of your social network in order to deduce your social capital. And that again is a very powerful predictor for the possibility of enhancing and developing your career. So what does Develop have? It has a competency profile. So based on the assessments that you take, you can see the competency profile. It has various assessments included. It also has career goals that you can say yourself, what kind of job positions would you want? It offers learning activities. So based on the competency gap, which I just discussed, the AI planner will offer you learning activities. One of these learning activities is a very novel social learning tool. So you can use your surrounding and your peers to help you develop. The social network analysis, touched on that before. And one thing that we find is very, very important, not alone because of the GDPR, but also because it's the ethics and the sensitivity, possibly what you're working with, is the data privacy. So a lot of time and effort has been spent in working out all kinds of privacy aspects. Who can look at the data, who's not allowed to watch the data. So the basic thing is that the participant is in control. He or she is the sole owner of the data and can decide whether or not to show the results and share the results with other people. So just let me give you a short introduction and a kind of a demo of the PLE. We won't be doing that online. They're just screenshots because of the bandwidth that we need for this presentation. So it starts off with a welcome. You sign in, you define your career goal, and then you can move on. And for instance, you would then fill out a personality questionnaire. I suppose everybody knows what personality is, but it's got to do with individual differences and characteristic patterns of thinking, feeling, behavior. So the idea is that your behavior is personality based. There's the Big Five, which is, say, the most accepted personality model. Have extroversion. People can either be extrovert, they like to talk with people, like to be around other people, or introversion, the people who can work better by themselves. We have agreeableness, which has got to do, are you very much focused on yourself, or are you very much focused on others? Conscientiousness, which is a very powerful predictor for all job positions. That's got to do with how orderly, how meticulous, how well organized are you. Stability has got to do with, say, being self-assured, knowing how to go about things, being a strong ego. And openness, which has got to do with, are you open to new ideas, new feelings of others? Are you creative? Things like that. Again, a very powerful predictor as far as job performance is concerned. What we use within the PLE is a Big Five questionnaire, which has a very high reliability, and we use the outcomes of the 5 personality dimensions in order to deduce competency scores. And this is based on a vast data set of people, working people, whereby we've built all kinds of regression models in order to be able to predict adequately and accurately the personality relation with the competencies. Another feature in the PLE is the general mental ability test, which is a kind of an IQ test, and where we see that the main so intelligence can be split into, say, abstract intelligence, number intelligence, and verbal intelligence. It all relates to what we call the G factor of intelligence. If you look, you could see that what Cattell called the fluid intelligence is more kind of the abstract intelligence, which doesn't really require any language, numbers, abstract figures, and the crystallized intelligence, which is much more verbally focused. Because of the cultural aspect with that crystallized intelligence, we haven't chosen for that, but we focus mainly on the fluid intelligence that people have. This is an example of the general mental ability test we take. You see, hardly it's called culture free, but culture fair, I would say. Reasonably high validity and reliability, and is a very powerful, if not the most powerful predictor of job performance, but also the potential to learn if you look at Schmidt and Hunter. One of the novel aspects that we got within the PLE is what we call the leadership game. So the leadership game is a game which measures your leading and deciding capabilities. It's very much focused on that cluster of the grade 8. And what we do there is we have it's a questionnaire based on the one hand, and the questionnaire or the survey grabs your intention. So do I want to be a leader? Have I got it in me as far as my orientation is concerned? And then a game part, a serious game part, with real life actors playing in a sequence, which captures your behavior. And especially that distinction between the intention and the behavior is very important as far as learning is concerned. So you have people who have very high intention to be a good leader, have everything in them as far as predisposition is concerned to be a good leader, but they don't show that in their behavior. And of course, that gives certain ingredients in order to develop that aspect of leadership, as opposed to somebody who doesn't really care, can't really be bothered as far as leadership is concerned, so has a low intention and doesn't show that behavior at all. So there's a discrepancy there, which is very interesting as far as learning potential is concerned. Here again, this is a video of the kind of impression of the leadership game. You see all kinds of actors. Again, I won't be showing that here, but if you go to the YouTube URL, which we'll be presenting after this webinar, you can have a look and get a kind of a feeling of what it looks like, this type of assessment material. We've had a lot of experience with using these types of tests, and what we see is that especially the younger generations really like these kind of assessment methods, prefer it over the traditional methods of questionnaires, because they say, we got a real feeling that there's a connection between the simulation and what is actually required in my job, whereas I don't see that connection when I'm filling out a personality questionnaire, so the traditional way of measuring things. The idea is that you see a video. Once the video is stopped, then you get 4 different answers. I won't spend time on elaborating on each individual answer, but if, say, for instance, you would choose one of the answers, then a specific film would be presented. If I would have chosen any of the other 3 answers, I would have get a different film. So it's an adaptive scenario in the sense that based on the reaction that you give, the story kind of evolves and develops itself. Again, here, if you want to look at this, it's on the on video on the YouTube. This is just a picture of the kind of complexity of the game. So all these nodes that you see are all films and choices that people can make within the game, and you see that it kind of expands and then comes back together again. So a very rich way of measuring somebody's behavior and intention as far as leadership is concerned. And one of the novel features in this simulation as well is that it doesn't only paint a picture of your leading and deciding capabilities, but it also, you can go back into the game and there's a coach who kind of looks at the answer that you've given and comments on that answer. And you can then go back into the game, choose a different answer and see what the effect is of that. So it's a kind of action learning by doing, but yeah, getting back comments from an e-coach. Another game that we got in the PLE is what we call a cooperation game. Again, one of the 8 clusters of Bartram's grade 8. Very important aspect as far as getting along and getting ahead together with others. Cooperation. I can't think of a job position where cooperation is not necessary. So again, very, very important. again, here you can watch the video on YouTube. It's the trade operation game. The idea is here that within a virtual team, you've got to solve a pending flu epidemic. How do you go about that? How do you get people on board when all kinds of irritations arise and people don't want to work together? How can you, together with this team, get the right end result? Now, the 360 review, obviously quite a lot of people will be acquainted with that. So it's the participant who is the center of attention, who fills out questionnaires as far as their feeling as far as competencies, the proficiency and competencies is concerned. But they also ask either peers or their manager, or even subordinates, if possible, to rate them on the same competencies, and you get an overall score of how the person sees himself and also what their surroundings sees as far as competencies are concerned. Again, it's based on the Great 8. It's a very relatively quick and easy type of measurement. It's got about 4 items per competence, which is enough as far as reliability is concerned, but not too much, because remember, you could be asking about 5 or 6 competencies, so that's quite a lot of questions, behavioral statements. But again, scientific research shows that this type of instrument is very helpful and has a high predictive validity. Another novel aspect of the personalized learning environment is kind of envisaging, picturing your social network. So, who do I know, and who within my network do other people know? So, can I use my network? That's the end, the quest of the story. How can I use my network to develop myself? If I know that certain people in certain positions are in my network, and I can approach them and ask them to help me as far as guiding me with a certain job position. So let's look at a demo scenario. So we got, for instance, this fictitious person, Mary Jones, who presently is a team leader, and she goes into the PLE. And what does she see? Well, it starts off with a kind of general introduction of the personalized learning environment. What it's all about, what are the capabilities and the possibilities. She then signs in, which of course is logical as well, but it's all password protected. So privacy is really important as far as we're concerned. Here again, the privacy settings. Who are I willing to share the results with? I can choose various people. I can also choose not to share it with anybody. But it's all up to the participant to decide who they want to share things with. Then you come into the home page, and you start off by choosing your career goal. What job position do I have, and where would I want to move on to? And then you start with doing the assessment parts of so the leadership simulation, the personality assessment, the 360, the cooperation game, the general mental ability, and you can take these individual assessments in the order which you feel right and which you want to have. Again, the personality assessment is regular, is a kind of a traditional but a valid and reliable test questionnaire which you fill out. You get results back. So based on the big 5, you get results back, your own personalized results. And what you see here is the translation according to that formula which I just showed. From personality to competency. So what I see, for instance, here is Marie, based on her personality questionnaire. This would be her score. So not terribly high as far as leading deciding is concerned. But if you look at the underlying competencies, you would see that there are competencies which are really low, but there are also some competencies which are part of leading and deciding where she has a really high predisposition for. And you see here her profile. She then moves on to the leadership game. That starts off with again a questionnaire, rather straightforward, and then move on to the game. the game is also reported, and what you see here is various scores on, again, the grade 8 as far as the outcome of the game is concerned. If she then returns back to her home page, you can see here that there are more information is available. So because there's a kind of addition, an increment as far as tests are concerned, assessment parts are concerned, you see that the competencies will change, but also, which competencies do we not know very much about, and which competencies are required for the position of team leader. So for instance, leading and deciding for team leader, you see that the required competency level is at a 2.5. Her present competency level based on personality and the leadership game is a 3.2. So you see here that there's a positive gap in the sense that she's got more proficiency than is actually required in this job position. The same applies for supporting and cooperating, and for interacting and presenting. In fact, for most of the competencies, you see that her present level of competency is higher than the level required in her specific job as team lead. So she wants to move up. She wants to move up to, say, for instance, project manager. She sets a goal for that. So what happens then? She chooses a new career goal. So in this case, there's a project manager. A project manager has different competencies and different accents on competencies than the team lead. And here you can see where she is now. So this is her leading and deciding, again 3.2. But this team, the manager job position she wants, project manager position she wants, requires a much higher proficiency level. So there's a negative gap here. So this is something that she could and should be working on in order to be able to start off as a project manager. Based on these gaps and the acquired or required competency for a career goal that she wants, the learning activities plan will be started. So we see, for instance, that a leadership and the underlying competency like boldness, learning interventions are suggested, and this is done with artificial intelligence. So this is kind of a self-learning system which gets better and better the more people participate within the PLE. So this is one of the learning interventions. This is a learning intervention, so for instance, which is available on lynda.com, but it can be anything, in fact, as long as it's linked to the competencies. Now a person can follow this course, can mark it as complete, and also give feedback on the usefulness of this learning intervention. And this feedback is then integrated in the AI planner and used again to kind of tweak the learning interventions which are suggested. Uta, you want to
go back.
the
Click for me and I'll. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is Marie is recommended learning interventions. You know a lot of e-learning interventions or face-to-face learning interventions, but in Develop we have also implemented a specific type of learning intervention for which we used the so-called social learning tool. And this is an intervention that can also be recommended to Marie, and she can add it to her learning plan and start the social learning activity. Next. So what is special about the social learning tool? It's a tool, well, a service to define and deliver activities which foster kind of a self-directed and informal learning of transversal competency, and it motivates you to train these competencies on the job. And the great idea is also that you interchange with other users in a digital community of practice. So that's kind of a tool within Develop to make interesting learning interventions. Next. So Marie signs into this social learning activity and sees a few tasks related to her recommended activity. And she decides, well, that looks interesting, I'll participate. Next. When she starts with the activity, the tool first asks her to reflect on her leadership competencies, kind of self-reflect what she thinks she's good at and what not, with a few simple questions. related to the competency taxonomy we have. And she is able to define her personal goals. So she can say, yes, coach me, I want to learn more, or no. Next. So depending on this initial, it's not an assessment, but a reflection, a goal setting, the tool recommends to her specific tasks which relate to sub-competencies of leadership, like decisiveness, sociability, persistence, depending on what she needs to develop. So she decides to start the persistence task. Next one. And starts working on it. Next one. The tool allows you to do a lot of things. So you can first look at a video, you get a task, and then you are invited to be active. You can share contributions, you can upload your own files, you can comment contributions of others, you can like contributions of others. So that's the idea, is to get an interchange on these transversal competency development with others and to continuously work with them. Next one. From time to time, Mary checks where she is on the sub-competencies reflected in the tool. Well, she seems to have just started, not been very active, so she continues with further activities, further learning. But next, when she's kind of complete, satisfied with her development, she goes back to the personal learning environment and marks this activity as complete, and her competency level in the personal learning environment increases on these trained leadership competencies. So, yeah. Finished.
That was it. Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the process within the developed system is, you sign in, then you can kind of browse around what's all available. You give consent in order to again, the privacy aspects. Who do you want to be able to look at the data? You can change that even afterwards or in between. So you can always go back to that and change it. The competency profile is based on the job role that you have at the moment is then selected. At least you've got to select your own job role. The competency profile is added to that. Then you take assessments, so you find out if your proficiency level is good enough or is even better, as we saw with Marie, related to your present job position. You can review these results. You take an next assessment, leadership, cooperation, etc. You view this gap analysis between what you've got as competencies and proficiency level at the moment and what is required for the job, and then the system advises you to take certain learning interventions, which you then can do or cannot do, but I mean it's not wise not to do that. You evaluate those learning interventions. Again, that is used to kind of feed back into the system and help tweak the system, tweak the learning interventions so that they can become better and better. If you've got a vast number of learning interventions, the system will start off by choosing presumably the best. But if everybody says, well, it's a crap learning intervention, another type of learning intervention will be chosen by the AI planner. You can monitor your progress. So the 360 can and should be repeated quite often, to get a feeling of, am I making any progress as far as what I feel myself, but also what my surroundings says about me about certain competencies. So kind of sanity check as far as competencies are concerned. And the idea is then that it kind of triggers off development, and you can go back into the system as often as you want, retake certain assessment parts, and kind of move up the ladder, choose different career goals if you want to find out where your gap analysis is there. And again, you can get learning interventions to, again, enhance your competency, your proficiency level on that competency. So the system, the project is coming to a close in the next 3 months. The system is standing, it's working. We're very busy very hard at the moment with trial partners to test the system, to look at the scientific value of the system, but also look at all kinds of technical and evaluative questions. Then the system, the idea is that it'll come onto the market, that organizations and companies can use it, either to link to their own learning management system or as a standalone system. We've got different application variants. So as an assessment suite, where you get a kind of a basic capability of testing yourself, testing your people, personalized learning environment, but also all kind of integratable modules whereby you can say, okay, say for instance, the simulation games are very interesting. I want to have that solely as part of my my total assessment, or either the social learning tool or the social network analysis. So the kind of parts, the components of the PLE can also be fitted and added to your own management system within the organization. It's probably a bit too time consuming to go through all these kind of aspects that are available. So I mean, have a look at it and read afterwards, and if you've got any questions, do come back to us on that. This is another picture of the service and delivery. So again, these various modules that we have, which can either be integrated within your own system or can be used standalone. It can either be used as a software as a service delivery, but also can be completely integrated within your own system. So if you would like to have developing your own organization, still some work has got to be done in the sense that the implementation strategy and what kind of variant do you want. We got to be able to identify the transversal competencies which kind of relate to job roles within your specific organization. We would then have to map them to the grade 8 as this kind of universal overlaying cast competency profile. Relate the job roles to competencies, and also relate the competencies to either generic learning interventions like lynda.com or Udemy, or specific learning interventions which are available within your own company. And then, of course, we've got to look very much at the privacy aspect. So the user roles of HR. Is HR allowed to look at the details? Or is it something that it's really only done by the participant as far as permission rights are concerned? Okay, as far as I'm concerned, this is a very brief overview of the personalized learning environment. If you have any questions relating to the sheets which we'll be sending you, or to any of the things that I've been saying, or that Uta's been saying, don't hesitate to contact us, get in touch with us, so we can answer any questions that you have.